So I'll kind of get started just to talk. Well, if you're here to join me for the bedtime story and you're ready to jam with me for just like 15 minutes, we're going to start now. And hopefully that can send you on your afternoon or your night if you're in Europe. So if you read my post, I have shared that I love the power of words used in creative ways to help us learn lessons about life and love and how we can navigate our way through this crazy existence in a more gentle and enjoyable and harmonious way. And I do a lot of that through poetry and prayer and blessings and writing. But since I've had my son, Ocean, I became aware of how little we use story and how stories are so powerful for teaching us so many layers of lessons. And I have been telling my son bedtime stories every night, and I reminisced of my childhood. My mum's side of the family is Indian, and we used to go to sleep every night with the most amazing tales of Indian gods, and Rama and Sita and Ganesh and Hanuman and all sorts. And I learned so much of how I orient in the world from those stories, and I'm sharing them with my son, and I want to share them with you as well. So I'm going to share one of my favourite stories and then just speak really briefly afterwards about the lesson that I think is in there for us. And it's called The Tale of the Cracked Pot. No one really knows where this story comes from. It's one of those ones that's passed from grandmothers to mothers to children. Some people say it is just an Indian folklore that is within our communities. So I'm going to share it. Tale of the Cracked Pot. Many moons ago, in the foothills of the Himalayas, lived a water boy called Rama. His job was to deliver fresh water to the king every day. And so every day Rama would wake at the crack of dawn, walk down to the river and fill up 2 earthen pots with fresh water from the river. And then he would walk the 5 kilometers along the river path to deliver this water to the king. Now these 2 pots on first glance looked identical, but they were different. You see, one pot had a tiny crack that ran through the underbelly of its pot, and the other pot was perfectly formed without even a blemish. As a result, the perfectly formed pot would deliver a full pot of water to the king every day, and the cracked pot would leak half of its water and then deliver just half a pot to the king. And as each day passed, the cracked pot became sadder and sadder, ashamed of itself that it was unable to fulfill its purpose, that it could only deliver half a pot to the king. This went on for 2 years, and each night the cracked pot would cry itself to sleep over its failure. One day, when the poor cracked pot could take the shame no longer, it spoke to Rama and said, "Oh Rama, I am so sorry. I'm so ashamed of myself, for I have failed you and I have failed our king. Because of my crack, I deliver only half a pot of water. I do not fulfill my purpose." And after it had finished crying, it promptly burst into tears and spilled any droplets left of water that it had everywhere. It looked up at Rama, and Rama was simply smiling. "Why are you smiling?" said the pot. "I am a failure." Rama smiled once again and said to this little pot, "On our way back from the king's castle today, I want you to look at the riverbank." And so the pot kind of mobilized itself and carried on with its day as normal. Rama filled up the 2 pots and began the 5-kilometer walk to the king's castle. And as ever, the cracked pot leaked half of its water. On the way back, the cracked pot noticed that there were wild flowers growing all alongside the riverbank. And this cheered it up for a few moments, but afterwards it thought, well, nothing to do with me. And Rama said to the cracked pot, but did you not notice that flowers were only growing along your side of the riverbank? And the cracked pot said, yes, I suppose I did. And Rama said, well, you see, I knew about your crack. And every day for the last 2 years, I've been carrying you alongside the sunny side of the riverbank. And every day you have been watering these wild flowers. And the cracked pot knew in that moment that it did have a purpose, that it was contributing, and that its little crack was planting the earth with beautiful flowers. And I loved that story as a child. And as I thought back to the meaning of the story, I reflected that as a child, what I took from that was always, well, your flaws are some of your greatest assets, and you may not be a perfectly formed pot, but even a little cracked pot is spreading beauty over the world or doing something good. And then as I grew a little older, I kind of flipped the meaning that I took from the story, and I started to shift my focus to Rama. And I thought, wow, this Rama fella is a water boy in India, earning probably no more than a few rupees a day, delivering water to this probably ungrateful king. But even still, he took the time to see this little cracked pot's gifts and nurture them in such a way that this pot is planting flowers. And those are the kind of messages that I took from the story growing up. But then the other day, I had a moment of realizing a whole new layer of meaning from the story that I feel is super relevant to our society and the way we're living today. I'll just speak on that briefly. I was speaking to someone very, very dear to me in my life who is just the most wonderful person, wise and funny and kind, would have been what my grandma would have called one of God's good people, just a good person. But because of chronic illness, they've been unable to work for big stretches of their life. And because of this, very, very often this person has felt, well, I have no worth. I am not worthy, I'm not a contributor, I'm redundant. And it's a feeling that I've had somewhat often since I've become a mum. I'm not working, I'm just looking after my baby, I'm not earning money. It's like, where's my worth? I reflected or became aware of how commodified the self is in this society, that we so acutely equate worth with monetary value, that if you're not earning money and contributing to the hyper growth that defines our society, that in some ways your worth becomes hard to find. And that in this story, so many of us, we are that perfectly formed pot, just desperately trying to deliver water to the king, to lay our labour on the altar of hyper-consumerism or capitalism, and just, be good little workers and then just here. But that, for so many of us, that kind of framing of worth leaves us feeling like we're worthless. For those of us who are doing kind of invisible or fugitive or unpaid work, we don't see that as true worth. It's the mums who are raising kids, it's the adult children who are looking after their dying parents, it's the carers in nursing homes looking after elders who are, paid terribly, but who are truly planting flowers over the earth. And I really felt like it was important to share that in this time when so many people have lost work or who aren't able to contribute in the way that they feel is worthy. That just by being you you are contributing. It's when you say, how are you, to someone and really want to know the answer. It's the perfectly timed hug. It's calling a friend. It's smiling at a stranger. It's all of these things that cannot be measured in monetary value that are planting flowers over the world, that are making the world a more beautiful place. And that it's so important in a world that is so desperate to commodify every single part of us, to hold on to the things that cannot be measured in an algorithm or in pounds or dollar bills or whatever it is, but that are so crucial for our existence: connection, belonging, love, compassion. That those matter, that you matter. So as I read the story now, that's what I see. I see, we're all doing this invisible work that many of us can't even see, but we're planting flowers over the earth, and God knows the earth needs more flowers right now. So I want to finish just by sharing a blessing with you all, kind of a prayer poem thing to bless you as you move into the week. As you move into this week, may you be blessed with the knowing that your very existence changes the world in ways you couldn't possibly imagine. The smile at a stranger, the perfectly timed hug, the how are you that actually wants to know the answer. It all changes the world. You see, you don't need to have 1,000 Instagram followers or a personal mission statement or a long list of accolades. And the difference that you make may not be measured in dollar bills or time gained or lives saved. But still, your very existence changes the world in ways you will likely never know. Rest then, not in the knowing how you will change the world, but in the simple certainty that you already are. So as you move through this week, I really hope that you can hold on to all the flowers that you're planting just by being you, and to really remember that you matter. Let this be permission to remember that you matter. And I'm so grateful to you all for joining me for this first bedtime story. And I'll be continuing a series of them. Let me know what you think. Love you. Thanks so much for being here. I will write this up. I will write up I can write up the story and the poet and the blessing and the blessing. And if anyone has any questions about, just wants to share any reflections, you can message me anytime. One love, intuitive mama, absolutely. One love, mama. Oh, thank you so much. I will. Thank you. Thank you. Go green, go white. I will feel those words. Thank you, Jules. And to anyone who's joining now, I'm going to share this, on the replay. So you can catch it on my feed. And if there's anyone who you feel needs to hear this, share it with them, please. Thank you, everyone. I'm not really sure of the Instagram live etiquette because I've only done one more, so I'm just going to hang around for a couple of minutes, just silently, and then I'll stop the video. But big kisses to you all. Okay, I'm going to stop the video now. Love you all. Good night.